Live.
That's new.
That's new.
Actually, a good addition. Okay, good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is the Marion City Council work session for Tuesday, June 1st, 2021. And do we have any council members joining us from home or virtually?
I'm virtual today. It's Renee. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Renee.
I am too, Your Honor. This is Grant.
Welcome. All right. First on the agenda this evening that's marked for discussion or presentation is a presentation regarding tax incentive request from Conlan LLC.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm just going to briefly introduce a representative with this project. In your packets this week, you had probably more information than maybe you're even interested in regarding this particular redevelopment. In our community, we would refer to this as the Hames site, right on Marion Boulevard as you exit our community. We've had a couple different concepts from different developers presented on this in past years since this property has been on the market. This one has by far been one of the more aggressive projects. Just so you know, as this project has gone through review by your staff and review by folks on our team, there's obviously lots of complicated factors when you're redeveloping a property like this. One of the reasons that it's in front of you for kind of initial consideration and direction today is as it relates to the state of Iowa's workforce housing tax credit program. So if you followed any of the action by the Iowa legislature as they ended the session, they did increase the annual allocation to this program in a rather significant way. So much so that finally, after several years of urban areas not being able to qualify for this project, that backlog of funding is going to be caught up, and there will be finally some additional dollars available for more urban communities, of which Marion is one. So Green Park is an example of a project that's an important program too. Even the Broad and Main project is one of those projects that was awarded a few years ago, won't actually get allocated its tax credits until July here. That's one of those backlogged projects. So as this program is now positioned to kind of come back to life, Talon LLC and Eagle Design Build are one of the projects that's really lining up to pursue these, really seeing a great opportunity in our marketplace. And with that, hopefully, I'm going to introduce Josh Krueger. He's the president of Eagle Design, and he's going to walk through this project here for the council. So Josh, are you there?
We can't hear you, Josh.
Can you guys hear me now?
Welcome.
Perfect. Sorry about that. All right. So thanks, Nick, for the introduction. What we've got here that you guys kind of see in front of you is what is kind of a to be named apartment development that we feel that we could bring a great asset to the community of Marion, at the same time as working together with you guys to get something like this off the ground. Nick did a great job of describing kind of the partnership that we go through to try to get projects like these, the market rate rental apartment development into communities like Marion. We've done it a few times. We've had success in Mason City, Iowa, with our River Apartments. We've done some in Orange City, Iowa, Sioux City, Iowa,
Hey, Josh.
Yeah,
We had a little bit of glitch on our connection on this end. You were not the only person that got kicked off, but could you just kind of hit the reset button for us?
Yeah. Yep, I can. All right, so kind of starting over, I'll start over from the beginning. Talon Development, Talon LLC, and Eagle Design Build. There are sister companies. Eagle, the construction side. Talon is the development arm. And over the last 5, 6, 7, it's been quite a while now that we've been developing projects like these, working with the state of Iowa through whether it be a workforce housing tax credit, or whether we could receive some assistance from brownfield tax credits. We've had some really good success with applying for those, working with local community development corporations or the cities themselves, and filling that financial assistance piece to be able to bring a market rate rental complex that is seemingly nicer than one might think is possible. But our big goal is to work with local communities and the state and really put all the pieces together and bring a product like you see in front of you there to a community that needs good housing for people that work and live in the area. This project specifically right now is kind of laid out for a 94 unit apartment, which is a 4-story building with surface parking and decks on the outside. And really it's situated in a really nice part of the town there. It just has some of its challenges, like any site would, with existing structures there that will need to be taken down. Quite a bit of grading included on this one, but that's we can use a little bit to our benefit, and some of it is just going to cost more. But we always try to make a project like this into its own little community where the residents feel part of something, rather than just another apartment that they live in for a year. Our turnover is relatively low year over year on developments like this, because for the money on a rental rate per month, the residents are getting quite a bit out of it, and that's usually all thanks to the city that we work with and the state of Iowa in helping us put together projects like these. We actually we're in the middle of another one right now in Fort Dodge, Iowa as well. That one's actually a 94 unit apartment like this one, as well as coupled with a bunch of townhome units. This one would need to be rezoned to an R6 zoning, I believe. The project size is about $11.5 million. That includes everything. And if we would be able to fill the financial assistance piece and receive the workforce housing tax credit for this project, we could make pretty quick work of starting and potentially be ready by spring of 2022. And on a project like this, it's generally 12 months construction time. So the land that is in reference to is currently under contract. So we are pretty determined to work with the local folks at the city and the state of Iowa to do everything we can to get a project like this to work. It's just filling in the last few pieces and hopefully taking off from there. So I think there are some floor plans on the next slide too, where you can kind of see a general layout, first floor, second, third, fourth, from top to bottom. On the first floor, we include a community room area with fireplace, TV, kitchenette, place for residents to host birthday parties, get-togethers, graduation parties, you name it. It's actually a quite widely used part of our buildings in our history. But there's also an on-site 24/7 fitness center, some restroom, common area restrooms there, leasing office. We've actually turned into making an entire room for just parcels. It seems to work out better with all of the Amazon deliveries and such. It keeps everyone's mail safe and away from just the passerby traffic. There is an elevator, and then you can kind of see a few of the outlines of the efficiency units, which is our studio, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, which is, and all but I think 2 units actually have a deck or a patio. So in a nutshell, that is the project scope. And we're really just looking at, like Nick said, looking for a financial assistance in form of what would be a tax abatement on this piece of land. So, really it's an Iowa state ordinance, I believe, or code. I forget the correct terminology, but we have used this kind of form of capital stacking in the past in, I believe, 5 or 6, just recently, 5 or 6 Iowa towns and communities, and it has been received well. It has worked, and we hope to continue on that path in Marion.
Okay. Is that it, Josh?
Yeah, in a nutshell, and I'm free to take any questions too, if there are any.
Okay. Mr. Glue, did you have anything to add or before we
So the
take
actual
questions?
direction that ultimately is being asked for from the council on Thursday is to direct staff to develop a letter of support for the workforce housing tax credit application. As Josh had mentioned, there's still a lot of work that needs to happen with the site. Your planning director, for instance, would point out lots of due diligence that needs to happen as related to the site itself. There's rezoning. As you all know, that's a complicated process in and of itself. So any support letter that Lon and his team would write would obviously recognize those contingencies and that process that needs to play out. This letter just needs to happen in advance, just as it relates to the timing of that application, but it will come with lots of contingencies that we've already talked with this development team about, and they acknowledge that that's just part of the development process and working with this program.
So is any of the due diligence going to take place prior to having a decision on the tax credits, or are we waiting for that before any other work is done?
I think we have talked with the team, and Josh, you can maybe add to this. We've talked with them about formally initiating the rezoning process. Obviously, that's something that the current owners would need to drive and be supportive of. But Josh, I don't know if you have any comments as it relates to initiating that process and how that relates to the workforce housing application.
Yep. So the workforce housing application actually requires excuse me, a few things. So one, we need to have the land under contract, which we do. And in that purchase agreement, we actually have the purchase of that property contingent on a few items, namely, working with us together jointly on property rezone, working with us. Trying to think here. What else was on there? And then it's contingent on the actual Workforce Iowa tax credit application being approved. So the landowners are definitely in support of all of this. They would like to see it happen just as much as we would. And then obviously, you pointed out there's rezoning to go through. There's a potential traffic study. There's accesses that need to be aligned with city engineers. There's all sorts of due diligence that goes along with going through the tax credit application process, and most of the time we kind of do that concurrently with the application. We'll submit and revise site plans to at least have a really good a game plan going into a project like this. If we're get the letters of support and we receive the workforce housing tax credit, we run right into, finishing the rezone, as well as working with the city to make sure that every other item is crossed off the list, and the plan that we put forth is accepted by everyone from the top down. So.
Okay, I see that Councilmember Harper has a question.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you, Your Honor. Josh, two questions. When did you say construction would start? And could you clarify kind of the range of rental that would be at the market price point that you're planning for?
Yeah, so if everything went great, which is all it just takes is hard work and some organization, and the approval of the tax credit application from the state of Iowa. But if on the design side, we could do that pretty fast. We've done a lot of apartment buildings. We've been through the process quite a few times. So it's really just a matter of finalizing design, finishing with estimating, making sure that we can hit the numbers that we historically know we can hit, and then waiting for the ground to thaw a little bit, because unfortunately we would be hard pressed to do it this year, especially with not knowing the exact specific timing of the state of Iowa awarding those tax credits. Although historically, when we've been approved and have been awarded tax credits, it's usually been in that August timeframe. And it sounds that with our contacts down at the IEDA, it sounds like that'll still ring true for this term. As far as the market rate rental, we have our studio units. They're a smaller unit, roughly 600 square feet. We try to keep those relatively low, so that there's a low cost of getting into the building. And those, we believe the market rate rental will be for the studios right around that 590 rental rate, 590 to 615 is historically what we've been at. As far as the one bedrooms go, it depends on the floor plan, because the square footage are a little bit different, but those generally range from the 760 to 850 range. And two bedrooms, again, it depends on the floor plan, but those are generally around, I'll just go with one number, around the 925 to 980. So they're decent sized units, no doubt about it. We haven't tried to squeeze every square inch out of a building. They flow a lot better when you just give them a little bit more room. So.
Well, I appreciate that information, and thank you for helping get me calibrated as to just what that pricing range is. So thanks again.
No problem. Yeah, I do want to make it clear too. It's a great question, but it's not affordable housing. It's market rate housing. So there's no income guidelines tied to housing like this. There's nobody that's worried about making too much or being in on a long waiting list to have the opportunity for some nice new affordable housing in Marion.
Any other questions for Josh?
I do, Your Honor.
Oh, go ahead, Renee.
Sorry if I missed it. Will these be annual contracts or month-to-month rent? What will that look like?
Generally, it's a 12-month lease. With some, if the building's fairly full or we're just trying to lease it up for the first time, sometimes we can work out some 6-month leases. But generally, we try to stick with the 12-month lease. It's a lot less hassle for the property managers, and we seem to retain good tenants if we are able to get them to stay around for the full 12-month term.
Okay, and the 6-month term then would be more of an exception, and you wouldn't go lower than that in terms of month?
Correct. You know, in the past, when we've done 6-month terms, it's usually been some contract leases that are negotiated with a local employer, which will bend a little bit, you know, if they want to take a group of units. We can work with them on that. But, you know, I mean, that's what this building is for. It's to serve for housing for the local workforce. And to us, it's important to work with employers like that. So, but yeah, it's 6 months is the lowest, 12 months is almost always what's going to be offered. So.
Excellent. Thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay, I have one question, and pardon me if I missed it, but what's the parking situation? Is this all outdoor parking, indoor parking?
It is surface parking. There's one thing that's actually not shown on the site plan because there's just a lot for space planning. But we'll have some surface garages that'll be on the perimeter of the property as well. Generally, we like to have at least one unit, or one garage inside surface stall garage unit per apartment unit. So we try to hit about that 33%. We currently have we did a quick density plan for the parking, and we've got more than enough parking spaces, room for the parking spaces required for a building this size. So.
Okay. Other questions? Yes, go ahead, Randy.
Thank you. Thank you. Nick, do you know, and this may be a question more for Tom, but do we have an overlay master plan for this part of the city? And does this fit that master plan?
I'll defer to.
This is a drastic change. I'm just curious for the number of units, the vehicle traffic. As we all know, that intersection is growing intensely day by day.
So the conversation internally is we'll have to take a good look at this as it relates to the land use plan, but it's currently land use designated for commercial and it's zoned for commercial development. So it would be an amendment to our comp plan and a change to our zoning map. So there's a process that we go through. There's a lot of an infill project like this is difficult because there are so many and it's even compounded by the way the ground lies in this site. So you have an intersection where there's a lighted intersection and then a skewed turn. So there's a lot of things that go into reviewing it. So I can't tell you 100% what we would do, but from what we've seen, there's support for the building. So we just got to work through the details of it. And I don't think it's an unknown fact that we really need apartments, workforce housing, and we've got a housing crunch right now. So this would fill a gap that we have in the community. We just got to make sure it fits and is appropriate and goes through the appropriate processes. But yeah,
Great.
And I don't think we would. If we knew it was something that wouldn't be accepted, we probably wouldn't be at this point, but we've been working with the group. It's been through some preliminary reviews at staff level, and so we're comfortable with it moving forward. Just understanding there is a process that we have to go through to accomplish a building permit for the project.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Nick, do you have anything to add? Okay, thank you, Josh. Thanks, Nick. We have another presentation on the agenda regarding summer events and protocols. I see Amber Bissinger's here.
Good afternoon, and thank you. I just wanted to take a couple minutes to provide you with a brief update regarding our summer events and protocols as we begin to reintroduce events in Marion. I also want to give special acknowledgement to our city's events coordinator and Parks and Recreation staff and all of our community partners that are being creative and trying to balance safety as we also recognize the benefits of bringing people together in this way. See the state and Lynn County Public Health, and really try to achieve some consistency as we bring events back in Marion. As I'm sure you're aware, things have changed rather quickly. And so we have a portion of our website dedicated to kind of the current protocols, and that's accessible right on the homepage of our website. A few of the things we're doing to keep attendees safe, we've printed some large signage, taller than I am, that outlines that we want people to distance when possible, wear masks if they're not fully vaccinated, wash hands frequently, and stay home if they're feeling ill. Employees and volunteers working the events will wear masks when they're working with the public, and distance cannot be maintained. They'll also be encouraged to stay home if they're not feeling well. We've added extra hand sanitizer stations and plan to disinfect high touch areas at the events as well. In addition, if you haven't been out to Lau Park lately, the crews have mowed a lattice pattern into the bowl of the amphitheater, just to provide that visual as a reminder for the distancing aspects. We have introduced online reservations for a couple of these early events, just to give us an idea of the number of people to expect. You know, looking at full capacity, can be a little overwhelming right out of the gate. So we're just trying to keep that capacity at appropriate levels. But certainly our hope is to remove this as the summer goes on and we kind of all get into a groove with community events. Many of the events, you're likely aware, have moved from City Square Park to Lau Park this year for two reasons. One, to allow that extra distancing, and also due to construction that is happening adjacent to the park. So we really want to emphasize the partnership, the shared responsibility of attendees, so that we can safely continue to offer this entertainment in Marion. I do want to let you know, Fireworks and Fireflies is one of those community events that we all take great pride in. Its first year, we had over 5,000 people in attendance. And so as we looked at the calendar a couple of months ago, it was kind of overwhelming to think how we might handle a crowd of that size when none of us knew where we would be in the world of COVID protocols. So in consulting with our committee, the city manager and others, and also thinking about our sponsors, the food vendors and attendees, I'm excited to tell you first that tomorrow we are announcing that this will be moving to Labor Day weekend for this year only. And then next year, we are going to be back to the 4th of July holiday. But we've honed in on Friday, September 3rd as kind of the day for Fireworks and Fireflies in 2021, and hope you'll mark your calendars for that. One other thing I did want to make the council aware of was we're coming up on the anniversary of the derecho. And so if you have any ideas or have had any suggestions given to you about how we might mark that anniversary, a call. We're kind of compiling the list of ideas right now. My guess is that it will be several smaller things over the course of the day to honor that, but certainly don't want to forget or miss out on things if you wanted to share any ideas you thought of. So thank you for your ongoing support and leadership. We certainly appreciate that and happy to take any questions.
Questions for Amber?
Mayor, I've got.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. Just a quick question. So you had noted that some of the programming requires reservations, or you're taking reservations. How do folks find out which programs they need to, complete a reservation form for, and which ones they can just show up to participate in?
Yeah, that's a great question, Colette. Anytime we make an announcement for the city hosted events, we're including that reservation information in the press release on the Facebook event pages. The link is right there. And a lot of times we're leading with that. Event reservations are required here or they're not necessary. We're basing that on several things. Just movie nights, for instance, in a typical year, we wouldn't have more than 500 people attend those. So we didn't think it was necessary to do that. Some of these regional performers, like I mentioned, we just don't know what to expect. And so we do encourage folks to, it's a free reservation. There's no cost associated, but will just help us kind of manage staffing and things as the events happen. So again, once we get through the first few, I think we'll have a better idea of what to expect. You know, I know some people are really excited and some people aren't quite ready yet. So just trying to navigate the unknown as we have been for a while.
When there is a reservation required, will it say, it'll be clear that it's free?
Yes,
Okay,
Yep.
so that people don't think that reservation means pay.
the cost, correct. Yep.
Okay. I do appreciate that we're looking for ways to make things happen. So I think it's exciting that we're going to have our summer events, which is one of the things that people look forward to in Marion. So thanks to everyone who's working so hard to try to make things happen. Any other questions, comments? Okay, thanks, Amber.
Thank you.
Okay, on with the consent agenda portion. No items are marked for the rest of page 1. Is that
The-
Rachel?
Yes, the Eat, Drink, and Be Merry event is scheduled for Thursday, July 8th from 5:30 to 9:30, which is a council night. It's been stated before that council wants to participate in those events. So if you would like, we could change that meeting date, either move up the time or change the meeting. So I'm just opening it up to what council would like to do.
Okay, any thoughts on that? Steve?
Yeah, my first inclination would be to combine the Tuesday and Thursday into one meeting on Tuesday. I mean, I think we tried before, you can move it up to 4 o'clock, but you never know this far in advance how long a meeting that may be, or if there's a closed session or anything else going on. So with that said, I don't know, we don't know what's going to be on the agenda. I'd be in favor of combining it.
Any other particular thoughts on that? Anyone opposed to combining them? Go ahead.
I
Well,
was just gonna say, I agree with Steve to combine it on Tuesday.
oh, Grant, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that as well, even though it may mean for a long session, depending on what we have to deal with. It gives us the greatest certainty to free up on Thursday for the event. So that sounds good to me.
Okay. Do you have what you need, Rachel?
So I'll change the item on Thursday to change the meeting date.
Okay. All right. And on page 5, the first item, E21, is also not marked. All right, we'll move on to community development, F1. I will turn this over to the Mayor Pro Tem. As well as F2, if anyone has any questions on that.
Yes, I just, so on the agenda for Thursday is the final plat of MEC 10th edition. And this is going to be extending, drawing a blank and I can't read it now, but partners, I believe, or Medco Drive out to Airport Road, or Enterprise Drive out to Airport Road, and platting the last two lots as you go north. So they'd be directly adjacent to the airport property and create that second egress into the business park. As a part of this project, the road would be extended. We're also working with Medco to include other projects with this plat. And when the work gets done adjacent to Airport Road, we're looking at surfacing Airport Road from 151 out past the airport to the road where Aircom Park is planned, which is the business park just east of the airport, which is preliminary platted by Abode. So trying to get a better surface to the airport and to the next industrial development area in the community. So.
Any questions? Thank you. Grant.
Yes, thank you. Tom, I noticed the reference to the airport transitional zone, and I note on this plat that there's a 125-foot no build zone. I think that's adjacent then to the runway. I presume that none of this creates any kinds of clearance problems for us relative to the airport and runway operations.
That's correct. So the clear zones provided in the platting and all the lots running north-south on the west edge of the airport have that same no build zone, 125 feet. As a building permit would be brought in and reviewed. We also have height restrictions as it relates to how far back the building is. It's a tapered easement that exists in the air. So there's some conversation about that in the staff report, but the further you go west, the taller the building can be. The closer you get to the runway, the shorter the building has to be. And I think it diminishes. I think even at the no build line, it can only be like 12 feet tall or something like that. So, and then what we do is we ensure that as projects come through, if they're close, we do run them through the FAA. They have a process upon which they review things that are built in those vicinities as well. So you can get a variance to that through that process, but it's not generally something we want to see a whole lot of intrusions into those easement areas.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? Okay, questions on F2 before we pass back to the mayor? All right, it's all you, Nick.
Thank you. All right, the remainder of page 5. No items are marked. Any of those items which anyone would like to discuss? And moving on to page 6, items A1, A2, and B1 are not marked. Any of those items anyone would like to discuss? Oh, Grant, go ahead. Did you have a question, Grant?
No, I just failed to put my hand down. Sorry.
Okay. All right, then B2 regarding Conlan construction. Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Your Honor. So items B2 and also items B4, these are two resolutions that we tabled at the last meeting. We had some contract language that the city attorney wanted to review and address. We did that. And so staff is recommending moving forward with both of these agreements. The first agreement is for the construction management services for the new public service maintenance facility. And the second agreement is going to be for the derecho repairs at our existing facility. So we're pretty comfortable with both contracts right now.
Are there any questions for Ryan? Okay, Moving on, B5 and B6 are not marked. Are there any questions on those while Ryan is still standing here? All right, we'll move on to public safety. C1, C2, and C3 are not marked for discussion. Any questions on those? Moving on to parks. Seth is here.
Yes, Your Honor, we're going to be removing this item from the agenda, so it won't be on the agenda for Thursday either. We'll be putting it back on at the next June meeting. One, we need more time. We are working with 3 vendors currently on getting proposals in. They need more time to get those proposals in because it is 1,500 stumps, and we need more time to make sure that they're apples to apples and we're getting the best offer for the city.
Good. Thanks for the update on that. My dad asks me weekly when the stumps are going to get grounded.
Yeah.
He's 82. It's all right.
Thank you.
I tell him to be patient. All right. Engineering, E1 is marked. We have Mr. Barklow here.
Yes, Your Honor. So this is our annual slip lining project. We did get 5 bids for this project. The low bid was from HydroClean. It does have a completion date of October 20th of 21 with liquidated damage of $300 per day. Because it came so under the estimate, we will likely be coming back with a change order and adding additional locations so we can get as much done with the money that we have available. But first we have to get the contract through. So.
Okay, any questions on this item for Mike? All right. E2 through E5 are not marked. Are there any questions on those? Okay. E6, Mike.
Yeah, so we brought this topic up some time ago. Let council have some time to think about these streets and maybe if there's a signature residential street that you wanted to do, but looking for that direction so I can have my staff working on that.
So I'm sorry, just repeat that.
Sure. So the green areas shown on the PowerPoint are the areas that are the old brick streets.
Right.
So we're looking for direction on what city council wants us to do after the discussion we had with the 7th Avenue project, whether we reuse these on a residential neighborhood, if we just overlay them, if we remove them, we're looking for direction. So
is that in like an imminent thing? Like you want to?
I have staff that's waiting to do something with these streets that they're falling apart and public service is having a hard time. So we'd like to get them figured out what we're going to do with them. If it's design them so that we can put them back in place, or if we want to just overlay them, we just want some direction on how to move forward with them.
Okay, so we have that discussion now, or how do we?
However you guys.
Through this process of determining which streets, or if any of the streets people, the council would like to preserve or overlay, or.
Yeah, I'm open to however you want to have the discussion.
I see Grant has a comment.
Yes, Your Honor, and the balance of my council colleagues, I had shared a draft document, and as I think I maybe said at one point to several of you, this was my means of trying to recover my kind of anti-brick personality that I maybe displayed at some of our earlier meetings. I got to thinking about in this this illustration that Mike is showing us on the Zoom is directly related to this. But I started looking at and doing a little research of the various historic districts that have been identified within Marion, and those are on the historic registry that is maintained by the National Park Service. And one of the specific areas that I discovered is bounded by 9th Avenue, 11th Street, and 10th Avenue. And that is referred to as the Terrace Park Historic District. And as I got to thinking about the potential of repurposing some of the bricks that we're going to be removing from the uptown area, it seemed to me that we could dignify an already designated historic district by using those bricks for those predominantly residential areas that have smaller volume of traffic and certainly less truck traffic when compared to what goes on in the uptown. So I did share that concept document with council. Rachel sent that out on my behalf to everybody. And I think maybe that project concept coupled with the input that Mike is looking for, maybe we can find a satisfying solution to give him direction, as well as then, as I say, maybe dignify a historic part of Marion and draw some attention to that area.
Okay. Other questions or comments, thoughts? Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I drove all these streets this morning to make sure I was familiar with it. And I kind of grew up in the north side of this area for a few years. And so I did enjoy some of those brick streets at that time. One question I have, the bricks we're talking about, are all of these bricks that were actually made in Marion?
That I do not have information on.
You know, and that's an aspect clear going back to presentations that Paul Draper made that we had discussions about and talking about a lot of the bricks that were made in Marion. To me, that's a facet of this that is important to me versus just having a street made of bricks that came from somewhere else. So to me, that's an aspect that's important to me. Again, I was in support of a brick street on 10th Street between 6th and 7th Avenue. That is not going to happen. I would still be in support of what Grant is talking about now that he's been on board, of picking a block in this area. And as I drove all these streets, the one that probably jumped out to me would be somewhere on 9th Avenue. I think the further north you go, the reason I talk about 9th Avenue is, to me, that's a street that visitors to Marion will see more readily than the further north you go. People just aren't going to be seeing the brick street. So if you want to preserve something, to me, it also has to have something to do with tourism and a reason why we want to save it. The other comment I would make is, given the differential between just paving the road or overlaying it versus saving and redoing an entire block of brick street, you're talking, I'm looking at your numbers back in February that you resent to us, you're talking about almost $200,000 a block. Given that delta, I'm fine for saving a block with brick streets, but probably to be prudent about how we spend our tax dollars, I would probably not be in support of more than that, because I think there's a lot of other streets that need repair that money could be utilized for more effectively. So that's my 10 cents worth.
Anyone else? I guess my perspective is, I don't know how we even make a decision like this without full information of, you know, the particular street, what the cost is going to be, those kinds of questions. And I'm a bit disappointed that it's not coming from the staff in terms of these are streets that we should save. I mean, we live in the oldest town in Lynn County. It's older than the state of Iowa. We tout that. That's something we should recognize as an economic development driver. That's something we should recognize as something that is a benefit and an asset to the city. And if we keep taking away these elements of the history of the oldest town in Lynn County, what good is it to say that we're the oldest town in Lynn County? What does it say about us as a community, of how much we care about our history? And it is about tourism. I agree that that's one. I mean, we should recognize that, the tourism aspect of it, the economic development aspect of it, but also the pride that it could instill in our own residents. of living in the oldest town in Lynn County, and that we take such pride in that, that we want to preserve these streets. And we're willing to spend a little bit of money on preserving a brick street, and not just, you know, preserving a few buildings in the uptown. It's just, where's the Historic Preservation Committee on this? To me, this is what they should be involved in. Why isn't the process where the Historic Preservation Committee studies this, looks at it, and comes with a recommendation that says this is our recommendation? Has anyone talked to the Historic Preservation Committee on this? I mean, to have an item on the agenda that says, oh, direct us whether you want to pave over these streets or what you want to do, is sort of making a decision in a vacuum. I'm sorry if I'm sounding a little critical. I'm usually very positive, but this is a very important subject to me. And I think that there should be more of a process for it. There should be a process that starts with the Historic Preservation Committee, which we appoint for a specific purpose. What's their purpose? You know, they kind of get called to a meeting every once in a while. I'm not sure what they're doing. To me, this should be part of their mission, is to make these types of recommendations. That's just how I feel about it. Any other comments? Will?
Thank you for saying that. I 100% agree with what you just said. I don't know how I can make a decision on this right now without knowing the facts on what the staff thinks can be done with each street, what the options are for each street, because I'm in agreement that we need to preserve what we have left for brick streets, because that's about it. There's not much else left. And that's the history of Marion. And that's, when they're gone, they're gone. We can't ever get them back. So I would, in my mind, I would prefer to save them all, but I would like to see options of what we can do on each specific area. And then again, I think it'd be great if the Historical Preservation Committee could weigh in on what they see with these streets and kind of do a granted with his research. They should be able to do that for us and give us an insight on it.
And I mentioned at the last meeting when we talked about potential of selling McGowan House, I think there's a great option that if that money could be directed towards historic preservation, preserving a brick street. I mean, there's a good option there, I think. If that's what the rest of the council would agree to.
I agree with that.
Your Honor?
Yes, Grant, sorry.
Yeah. So relative to the Historic Preservation Commission, I did delay meeting with them for May, just because I wanted to develop at least the concept of utilizing bricks in an appropriate residential historic area, which led me down in part the research that I did do. I do want to meet, if I can get on that agenda with them to talk more about this. And I would envision that we could stimulate, hopefully, their input to give the necessary recommendation back to engineering in a reasonably timely manner. I do agree with Steve, given the cost factor for the construction as we recall it. Only one street, really, one block, perhaps at the outside, a couple of blocks might be eligible for doing something. But I just think we can get through a soak cycle on this pretty quickly and have a recommendation back so that this doesn't languish into the fall, so that we can get some traction as early as possible.
Okay, Grant, we didn't hear the last portion of your comments.
Oh, I just, I guess what I was saying is I think we can move at pace over the next month to try to clarify where, where a targeted area would be, and perhaps with some recognition of an already designated historic district.
Steve, you had something else to add?
Yeah, my question for you is how many of these streets are currently in the 2021 street improvement plan? I mean, some of those, the further north you go, some of those are in bad shape. I mean, the curb, the sidewalks, they're not very flat. I mean, so the ones further south are in better shape than the ones further north. So how many of these that are in green are in the 2021 street improvement plan? And we really need to be saying we need to make a decision ASAP.
So it kind of, again, depends on what direction we go down. If it's something where we can overlay them, then they could be part of the HMA program where we overlay it and put new curb and gutter in that section.
Okay.
If it's something because of grades, there's some areas where at the back of curb is the sidewalk. And so in that case, likely would have to reconstruct that. But we also have residents that are trying to fix their sidewalk and there's no curb to tie their sidewalk into. And that's why we've always just been told that hands off, you just leave that area. But then unfortunately, there's been very little maintenance. And so it's coming to a point where we got to decide what we want to do with that. So we can run as many numbers, we can run it through historic preservation. I just need to get some direction. Last time you guys just said you want more time, which is perfectly fine. I need to know what process you guys want to proceed. Because
I appreciate the situation that you're in. What I would love to see is an organization-wide commitment to wanting to preserve history more. We have what we have, even if it's in bad shape. It's what other cities are trying to create. It's what people are trying to create, because we have that certain feeling that people get when they're in this area, this historic old town. And I just wish we, would look for ways to try to preserve it and to recognize the benefit of it for this town and the benefit for economic development and for community pride and tourism. It really is an asset. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, if I look at this from a really big picture standpoint, and the reason I said 1 block, even 2 blocks that Grant was talking about, if we really want to talk about preserving all of these, we're going to be talking in excess of probably $2.5 million. Okay, and if we're going to sit here today and you're going to ask me, am I going to want to invest $2.5 million in this section of town when we have so many other roads in need of repair? My answer is going to be flat out no. If you want to ask me, do I want to preserve something somewhere? Just as I supported that direction before, I will do that again. But I don't know what the collective opinion of everybody is. If you're saying, Mike, we want to try to preserve 100% of this, or which ones are in better shape that we can try to preserve, that's a different direction. But I will never support trying to spend another $2.5 million to keep all of these streets as brick. I just cannot spend that kind of money on those streets for that effort.
To your earlier point, Steve, though, one of the conversations around these has been about whether or not they are bricks that were fired in Marion or they have that local tie. The reality of it is if you look at these areas, we would have to salvage brick from some of these streets in order to use to preserve some of the other ones. So you start to balance out the ones where you're going to have to do reconstructions for the materials that you need. We would never be in a position where we could feasibly do all of these back into brick.
Well, that immediately shrinks the 8 blocks down to some other number then.
Yeah.
I mean, half to a third of them are going to be chipped too far that you can't put them back in.
Okay, so then realistically, you're saying if you're going to preserve them and not buy new brick to put in the streets, if we're going to try to just preserve what we have, you're down to half of that or 4 blocks. So I'm just trying to get a big picture standpoint here on what.
That could be part of a process where Historic Preservation Committee, working with staff, looks at the streets and says, this one is beyond repair. This one has brick that can be reused to help preserve one of the other streets. Those are the types of things that could come in a proposal to City Council. That I'm personally can't just make a decision based on this agenda item now as it's written.
Well, Councilman Harper has indicated his willingness to come meet with Historic Preservation, so we'll coordinate with him and Historic Preservation to come up with a plan and bring back to the city council.
Okay, Colette, did you have something?
I was just gonna suggest that, right, that seems like a good place to get started, is I really appreciate Grant jumping in and doing some of the hard work, I think, right, to get us started. And I like the idea of thinking about this more at sort of the neighborhood perspective, like smaller pocket neighborhoods as opposed to this entire area. And to look at it from that historic, right? So I think Grant, I don't remember what he called it, but right, that smaller, the southern part there is some neighborhood name, I'm not sure, from several
Sounds like it
decades
was
ago,
a
right?
designated historic district.
Yeah, so there's something neat about that, right? That it
Yeah.
responds to what you're
Right.
discussing as opposed to thinking about this entire, because it's a brick street, we should keep it a brick street as opposed to these smaller neighborhoods and what we might do at the smaller neighborhood perspective. So Grant, appreciate the work that you've done and the leadership you're gonna provide for this activity.
Anyone else? Okay, I appreciate everyone's patience on this. Thank you. On to community development. Or was there something else, Mike? I think that was it, right? Okay.
So the first item is pretty self-explanatory. I think the council got a copy of the memo that we received from the auditor's office regarding an engagement with them or assistance that they can provide us in drawing precincts and boundaries as it relates to adjusting boundaries in the fall once we get our census numbers back. In the past, we've done this and it certainly helps, so we don't have to do all that in-house. So we would move forward in that direction with support of the council. You want me to go on to the next item?
Anyone questions on that one?
Just a quick clarification, which questions are going to be asked. So the current wards as they stand today then probably will not be redone prior to the next election?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I was kind of reading between all of that, but I wanted to have a clear understanding that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, Dave in our office is kind of heads up some of the a lot of the census data, and I think we got some preliminary numbers, some estimates today, but we're not anticipating getting full results until I think the latest date was September, so that it's just not an option. So it is unfortunate. We'd usually like to try and get that done as soon as we can once the data is available, but it doesn't make sense to go through it twice and when you don't have real data. So yeah, we were supposed to have the numbers. I think the original was April. So we were thinking we'd be moving forward with that, but.
Okay. Next one.
So the next item is the final site development plan for Lynn County Business Park, 4th edition. This is the property on Highway 13 as you're coming south on Highway 13, just south of Methodist Church. This is an older development plan that's been put forward. It's been developing out for over 10 years. And I did reach out to Mr. Berger. You know, this development plan was put together. There weren't a lot of design standards in place at the time. And so we had some conversation about trying to maybe increase the buffer or provide some additional materials as it relates to this area. He did want to move forward with getting the final site development plans through the city council, but he was open to the conversations. I don't know that as you can see, this has been going for 10 years and there's 5 buildings out. He was trying to get the last phase of this through the city council, but I don't think he's actively building all 5 buildings or the rest of the buildings at this point in time. So we're working through some of those conversations, but he did ask to move this forward. I think he does want to move at least quickly on the next building. But I think the concern is more about when they get up there adjacent to Highway 13 and trying to create a better buffer or a different mix of materials in some of those buildings. So we'll continue those conversations. The property is tight, but I'm hopeful that we can come up with some resolve as we get those buildings fronting Highway 13. So
you said the concern, whose concern is it? Is that, I mean, it's the city's concern, right?
correct.
I mean, there are no design requirements at this point out there.
No, I mean, the project was approved. I don't have my staff report in front of me right now, but it was approved, I want to say around 2010, if not even before that, actually.
Well, I appreciate you making the effort to at least suggest it to him and see what can be done.
Yeah. And generally it's hard to add, if your final is consistent with your preliminary, it's really difficult to make adjustments to that without, kind of having the conversation with the owner as well. So. I mean, if there's any questions on that, I'll keep the council updated on where we go with that conversation.
Anyone else? Okay, F3 through F7 are not marked. Any questions on those? F8.
On Thursday, there's going to be a public hearing regarding an ordinance amending Chapter 76 related to bicycle regulations, and it just provides some details of updating our code, specifically allowing the electric tricycles and stand-up scooters, and then kind of delineating where folks can be on their bikes or on their scooters in the uptown and then around the community as well. Kesha worked on this with BPAC. BPAC's reviewed it. The police chief has also reviewed it, and it's being recommended for approval by BPAC. So it's been through several groups and vetted. So.
Questions? Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, just a comment. Does this include, I mean, downtown Cedar Rapids, when I go down there, I see these things, especially at nighttime, on a nice night, just absolutely all over the place, and I'll see them miles away from downtown. But does the definition now include all three types of, I'll call them bicycles or scooters, whatever you want to call them? They now have three different types down there, and the electric assist bicycles covered, electric stand-up scooters covered. Now they also have the scooter electric one where you sit on it. So is that covered in there? The tricycle's different. So I look at that third one that they just added this spring.
Yeah.
Is that now included, or does that need to be covered in there now as well?
Let me speak with staff and see what.
You know which one I'm talking about?
Yep.
They just
did
added
the
it
ribbon
this spring.
cutting or something for them down there. And I know there's been a lot of concerns. I think there was an article that they issued several tickets to people that were riding them on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have the public ones, because that's the ones that you see just randomly left on the sidewalks and in disarray. I can tell you that at a national level, the planning community are really struggling with this situation in big cities. If you have one of those of your own, you can literally use it for full transportation. So they're getting it's pretty crazy in some of the bigger communities on how they operate. So I can check on that though. And then I would like to talk about 10 and 11, although they're not starred.
Go ahead, please.
So item number 10, this was added late, and we were notified that there was a desire to kind of push up. Well, the state had asked that we push up some documentation relative to Terrace Road. So there wasn't a lot of information in the packet regarding this, but As you'll recall, the Terrace Road project, the city of Marion responsible for acquiring the property. It's 3 properties west of Albernet Road. It's the Downing property, the Klobeck property, and the Jacobs property. And when I say are responsible, we're paying for the right of way associated with those properties. Cedar Rapids is going west of there over to C Avenue, and those properties are the city of Cedar Rapids responsibility. So we've been working with the Cedar Rapids right of way acquisition agents because they have it in-house. They've been securing all the documentation, working with the property owners, and then when they get to a certain point, we get the documents and we sit down with them, and then we process payment, approve of the purchase agreements, and move forward. Well, so there's the 3 properties. The first one we were bringing forward was the Downing property. We've met with them and talked with them, and they're agreeable. I sent them all the paperwork today. We do not have a signed purchase agreement, but they're agreeable to all the terms that they've seen so far. So we're working through that issue. There's no issue, by the way. We're just working with them. It come to light that Cedar Rapids actually went forward and processed a signed purchase agreement for the Jacobs property, which is the furthest west piece. So they're due to pay for that property through the acquisition process. And so what we're doing in item 11 is just reimbursing the city of Cedar Rapids for their acquisition of that portion of Terrace Road. And, so those 2 will be taken care of. And then the Klobeck piece, which is the larger piece, sits kind of in the middle north of Barnsley Circle area. The owner and the city could not come to terms. And so there's a condemnation hearing set, and I believe it's August 4th, I believe is the date of that hearing. If all goes as planned with the approval of the 2 items on the agenda, and if the condemnation board makes a ruling at that August meeting, I believe that the project would be ready for letting in September, and there could actually be some work get accomplished out there, some grading in I will say winter of this year. So the idea is that they could get that first area graded, let it sit over the winter, and then next year they would purchase the property west over to C and grade that, and then come back the following year and pave the Marion portion, and then the following year pave the Cedar Rapids portion. So it's, I want to say, a 3-year construction time frame, but it's still kind of fuzzy. You know, as we've done right-of-way acquisitions, they can take a turn without knowing, and we've got to go through the DOT letting process. So if the Klobeck piece gets delayed or something, it could throw it off by a full construction season. So, but at this point, I think we've got everything in line to get the properties that would, you know, kind of be in the hands of whatever the condemnation board does. So, any questions on that?
Okay. Next item under library.
I should just go.
Hello?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, this is Sean Kelly from Member Anderson. Good evening, council. I'm going to discuss kind of both of these at the same time, but I can go back and forth between them. I'm here tonight to present to you the kind of the final 2 furniture packages for the Marion Public Library. The first one on the resolution, the Stony Kenilworth, is mainly involves mainly office furniture as the majority of that contract, but it does include a few other tables and chairs throughout the library. This was done on the government contract that is approved through the state of Iowa. So they have a basically a table and a purchase list, and we went through that. And then the Stony Kenilworth is a provider of that furniture. The second one is similar. This is some tables and chairs throughout the library on both first and second floor. This one was sent to Workspace, and they're out of Des Moines, Iowa. So that one came in at $93,801. Both of these are less than the budget that we allowed for that, are indicated for them. So the overall, the total project right now for all the furniture is just under $60,000 under budget for the total furniture for the whole project. And if there's any questions.
Questions for Sean? There are no questions. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Last item on the agenda is a presentation regarding Marion Historic Preservation Certified Local Government Annual Report.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Dave?
Been a while since I presented. This is an annual report I'm supposed to give every year as part of our certified local government grant certification. I didn't remember giving it last year, but I did look back at my notes and I did. So unfortunately, I couldn't find my report from last year. So hopefully you're getting something kind of new and not something I just bring back every year. The Marion Historic Preservation Commission meets, tries to meet monthly, 7:30 in the morning, every second Tuesday of every month. And of course, it's an open meeting. Everybody's welcome. We've been a certified local government since 2000, since right prior to me starting here at the city. We're one of about 90 communities in the state, or communities, counties that are a certified local government. Essentially, the CLGs, certified local governments, they provide assistance to communities and counties and other jurisdictions to conduct historic preservation work. And in that time, we've, in my staff report, I've laid out several of the things we've done. Just most notably, we've done a survey and evaluation of 4 districts, which include hundreds of units, residential housing throughout the community. We've created 3 historic districts: the Pucker Street District, which is our first, along 8th Avenue, the Gray Greens Edition, which you guys were talking about a little earlier regarding the brick streets. That's north of the old City Hall, north of the Presbyterian Church, Farmer State Bank area. Then the Uptown District, which I think we're all familiar with. We've also done a pretty thorough survey and evaluation of the 6th Avenue from basically McDonald's all the way to Draper's former building. In addition, we've done we've assisted with getting 4 properties on the historic register, 3 private homes on 8th Avenue, and then the McGowan House a few years ago, which is again also a pretty current topic as well. We've been awarded a couple of scholarships to attend national conference a few years back. Cody Crawford, who was a member at the time of the commission, and I went to that in Des Moines, and met a lot of great connections and tried to bring some great ideas back to Marion. In addition, we've received, we've produced thousands of pamphlets that we've given out over the years, normally at city events, Swamp Fox being our big one, but we've also set up booths at the City Showcase and a few other local events and handed those brochures out. They're kind of a self-guided walking tour. They're pretty old looking, and we've talked about trying to do an upgrade to those and making those available online, as well as making brochures available again for Swamp Fox and some of those other festivals when we were able to start meeting again. One of the biggest lasting impressions I think the commission has brought to the community has been Judy Hall's work with I think her 6 books that she's written over the last 20 years. They're all available at the library. We give copies to the school districts. I think we've given copies to almost every school district in the Cedar Rapids metro area for their libraries. We've given them to all the local libraries in Lynn County, as well as archived them at the state. And those have been made available digitally now as well on the Marion Public Library site. I need to find out the clicks it's getting. I'd like to know if it's getting clicks online or not. As part of the presentation, while we think we've had a lot of success, Unfortunately, we've had a lot of challenges, and the biggest one is vacancies over the years. The HBC, you have to have a little, I want to say you have to have some passion for it. It's not just a commission you can join and go through the motions. You do have to have a passion for historic preservation, history, and that's been a challenge for members. We just got up to full membership a couple months ago, and I'm losing a member tomorrow probably, unfortunately, so I'm down a member already. And so that's been a challenge to keep the vacancies at 0. We've also just, like everybody, we just lost a lot of engagement in public involvement. We did some exciting projects early on. Pucker Street, everybody knew it. Uptown, everybody knew it. And now we've got the easy fruit. Now it's like, what do we do now to re-engage interest? You know, what historic districts are out there still that would probably generate public interest? And unfortunately, for our surveys and that we've done over the years, is there's historic homes out there, but there's not historic districts anymore. Not nationally recognized historic districts, I should say. So it's hard to kind of generate excitement when you're just doing a house here, a structure here and here. So just getting public involvement has been our struggle. Vacancies and public engagement, again, have been our biggest struggles. Over the last, we have picked up some new responsibilities. In the last couple of years, we've reviewed all demolition requests within our historic districts. Fortunately, it's been very few. It's mostly been some garages, even garages we review. A 1-carriage house. We've had one house move from Pucker Street to a new neighborhood, and it was not a historic house for that district. And then the most notable one would probably be the old gas station that was on the Tomaso's site. I forget what that one was, Sinclair, maybe. I suspect, what was that? It
was Jiffy Lube.
Jiffy Lube, yeah, the Jiffy Lube, and prior to that, I think it was Sinclair. Well, the commission will probably be reviewing a few more buildings here. Well, maybe not if the building official declares them a nuisance and has them torn down anyways with the Caraway building, unfortunately. We have adopted some goals. I did put those in your packets for you to review our goals. We need to re-adopt those and refine them. Next week, we are meeting Tuesday morning. I have Brooke from Main Street coming in, talking about what they're doing. I think we have a lot of overlap on our goals, which is great. We want to work together, but we're also looking for some projects that we can separate ourselves and run ourselves on our own without Main Street or without the Heritage Center. I mean, having them as support, but we want to have some responsibilities that we can do on our own as well. So that's coming up next week, next Tuesday. The one other item that we're deficient in is an itemized budget. I used to have one 15 years ago. I think it was $100 a year. We used it mostly for printing. But that's one of the things we have to report every year, that do you have an itemized budget? We don't. We operate out of the planning department budget, which is, again, mostly just printing in my time. So it's fine, but they do like to see something itemized. This shows a commitment from the city or county that they're committed to the Historic Preservation Commission. And it looks like we'll probably be talking about brick streets next Tuesday. I'll follow up with Grant on that. I know he's wanting to get on my agenda for a while, but I don't know if we'll be waiting for that or not. We're just going to keep moving ahead. And I'll bring that up to their attention, and hopefully have engineering there to help me out with a little presentation on what's going on there. So again, this is just part of my required annual report. I should be giving them without being required. I need to keep the council a little more informed on what we are doing going forward. Hopefully with this new year, I have some folks that are challenged by technology in the Zoom meetings and just the ability to meet in person. So hopefully coming forward here, June on, we'll be back in and meeting monthly and trying to contribute some more back to the community. Any questions?
When you say that properties are surveyed and evaluated, what does that mean?
Yeah, we hire a historic archaeologist, historic archivist and archaeologist. Leah Rogers out of Tallgrass Historians. She looks at every single property, delves into its history, both architectural and Judy Hall assists her with the genealogy side of the house. And she determines when the house was built, style of the house, is it contributing, non-contributing, or eligible for the National Register, whether part of a district or on its own. We get a history of the house from really almost the day it was built to whenever that report was repaired, and we've done hundreds of homes, mainly around the core of the community, then all the way down to 6th Avenue, since that was the old Main Street in to the community. So
Have we looked at like programs to incent people to preserve those homes, like forgivable loans, those types of things that other cities have?
well, if you would give me the McGowan House sale, well, we could take that and we could do something like that. That's something we want to do, but we just never had a budget for it. We've had it, the Main Street has some of it for the uptown, but we don't have anything for homeowners. We haven't had anything for homeowners for 19 years.
Yeah, even a contest or something to get people excited about keeping up the homes, preserving them, improving them.
We partner with the city.
There's a way we can have a small forgivable loan program.
Yeah, we'd love to do something like that and run with that. And I'm talking to Brooke about, Brooke's got some skills in running programs like that. And we've also worked with the city of Mount Vernon in the past, maybe 15 years ago, we did window workshops where we had Mount Vernon brought in somebody, we put a little money into it, and they brought in a guy that, here's how you fix a wood window or the sashes. And we've had a paint demonstration one, appropriate painting, shouldn't say appropriate painting, how to appropriately remove paint and paint wood siding. So, and those are fairly popular. I mean, unfortunately, I think we had a few Marion residents there, but it was mostly Mount Vernon folks, but it was still really I mean, I learned a lot and I brought it back and tried to pass that information on as well. So.
Anyone have questions? Grant, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dave, I think I heard you say we didn't have any historic districts that are nationally recognized. Is that right?
We have 3 that are nationally recognized. We don't have any districts. We don't have any potential districts that would be eligible to be nationally recognized beyond the 3 we have.
Okay, so the 3 we have is Terrace Park Historic District.
Correct.
The Marion Commercial Historic District, and then Pucker Street.
That is correct.
Okay. And so tying back to the earlier conversation about bricks, Terrace Park, I think, is probably the most geographically constrained or compact area. And you mentioned the archivists, I think, doing the historical workup of a given piece of property. It's kind of fascinating that they really researched the lineage of homes that are within the districts to tell a pretty compelling and interesting historical storyline relative to the significance of the area. Okay, I just wanted to be clear in my mind, at least, that we do have nationally recognized districts, and it would be on that basis that we really should look at the goals and objectives of the commission and see what we can do to try to propel ourselves forward to really dignify at least one of the areas and drive some energy around it because of the historical significance to our city.
Yes. And again, our goal is not this upcoming meeting, but probably the next meeting after this, we're going to revise our goals and objectives to get more districts, because we just don't have them, and focus on what we do have. And instead of trying to go and maybe identify ones that are not today, but 50 years from now, this may be a district. Because when we talk historic preservation for district nominations, you're talking about 50-year increments. So we got to go out and find that district today that we all think, well, this is a new neighborhood. The English Glen neighborhood north of 10th Avenue. I forget the street names. It's one of the earliest really planned neighborhoods in the city. Doesn't qualify today, but maybe in 25 years it may qualify. So what can we do today to prep that district or something in 25 years?
Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, just to cover off on this, I'm certainly interested. If the commission is meeting this month, I'd like to join them, tell part of what was on my mind, and obviously to drive us forward to some overall conclusion on what we want to do with bricks as well as anything else that's appropriate.
It'll be an in-person meeting with a Zoom option, so I'll send you the Zoom invite as well.
Okay, thank you.
Dave, do the districts have organized leadership? Do they have like somebody who's in charge or someone who's leading the effort in the district?
We used to, but as memberships left, we weren't able to fill.
So
We weren't able to fill them with a body from that district, unfortunately. So
it all comes back to the city in terms of any kind of initiative.
it does. The Pucker Street was really the last.
To
one
me,
to
like if is it a commission or is it a committee? I've seen it.
commission. You
It's
said
a
committee
full
earlier. It's a
commission?
it's a committee. It's a council appointed commission.
Okay, because I've seen it stated as a committee. Okay, so but
It's
a
a
full
commission.
commission.
Yep.
Okay. So that, I mean, that could be one project for the commission is to work with the neighborhoods to help them organize. And so that there's a more of a grassroots effort on the part of the neighborhoods to, work with each other to come up with ideas and to promote preservation and keeping up the houses. Again, it's like what good is having a district if the houses are going to get dilapidated and they may be torn down. And I understand that there's a limit to what we can do, but maybe some of that energy can come from the neighborhoods themselves in terms of having pride and hey, we are a designated district, and this is something that's a point of pride for the community, and maybe we work together to come up with ideas on how we should maybe seek funding through grants. I'm sure there are grants out there for this type of thing. They some of the ideas and because you have a limited capacity yourself, so maybe that's one thing that the commission could do is work with the neighborhoods on themselves organizing and taking on some of this.
Yeah, I think a grassroots would be the best. Unfortunately, when we talk about city, county, state, federal budgets, when they say, what are you going to cut? Historic preservation efforts are usually one of the things that we're low hanging fruit and we know it. And when budgets get tight, there's virtually no grants today unless you're the Bruce Moores of the world for the project. What we have here in Marion, unfortunately, maybe not in our uptown, but our residential neighborhoods that really need help. There's just nothing available. So if there's a grassroots effort to work on the easy stuff, and if there's a few city dollars that might be available for something forgivable or grants, that all goes a long way to find our most vulnerable structures in our historic districts. And I don't want to say put a Band-Aid on, but hopefully give them some life again until their money is available to really do something right with them. So.
Yeah, to me, this is one of those things where the more people that are involved, I think the better, instead of having it be concentrated at your desk or, the commission, get the neighborhoods involved, get more people involved. Cooperation, collaboration, I think will yield some results, I think more results than what we're seeing now in terms of those homes being preserved.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say too, it might be, this could be a good year to initiate some of that conversation around landscaping due to the trade show and some of the, nonprofit organizations, and start with the landscaping. Sometimes it's just that rebeautification and, maybe there's a consistent tree they want to, line the street with, that might bring back some of that identification, for that particular district. So I would think somewhere in there, the landscaping would be a great start. And then, back to whatever, tuck pointing, things of that nature to preserve obviously the brick and, the stuff in there. But there's some great opportunities there. It's just some good, it might take some things to, think tanks to get some things started there. But I appreciate, that committee, and I know that the budgets are tough, and but maybe if we can breathe some new life into it, maybe we could start some of our own organizations too. So thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Yes, question.
Go ahead.
I know
Sorry.
you're in the corner.
I didn't see you. Sorry.
But so you meet second Tuesday every month at what time?
7:30 a.m.
And so you're going to be in person
Be in person this next Tuesday.
starting in person. And then how many are on your commission?
the 5-member board, 5-member commission, but I think I'm down to 4 now again.
Then are there, so if you need one more person, is there gender balance, anything like that, or is it just anyone that's interested?
There is we try, well, it's a 5-person board, so I'm nice and balanced right now with 3-2, so it can, I'm not gonna be messing with my balance, but it's
So there's
hard
no
to find somebody.
requirements other than living in Marion, I assume?
But in Marion,
And then kind of what Nick was saying, I was gonna mention that too, maybe more community involvement with the different districts in town, and maybe next year have a line item budget for historic preservation to maybe do some more work in the community, not just printing or whatnot, or his time, but more community involvement type stuff. Don't have to be a lot, just more than 0.
Okay.
all right, thank you.
I think that brings us to the end of the meeting. Thank you very much.
Take care, all.
Bye, everybody.